Hey there, listeners. Welcome back to a very special new episode of my Big Fat Pull List. Today, we are talking about the one thing that everybody is talking about right now because we have to. We have to talk about it. Spider-Man No Way Home. It's out. We've seen it, and we are going to give our opinions and our review to you guys now. I am here. I am Dr. Impact, and with me, I've got two great listers here. Guys, introduce yourselves.
I'm Smurphy.
I'm the remember we're in spoiler zone. Pistol danger.
That's right. That's right. This will be a spoiler-filled
Yeah,
review.
this is gonna be full of spoilers. There's no way you
Yes.
can't.
Yes. And for those of you who are listening to this episode on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite platform of choice is, um, we have this same episode up on YouTube. So if you want to see our elation or possibly disgust at certain things on
Mhm.
our faces, go to our YouTube page, subscribe to our YouTube page, follow us, check out this episode on there. Well, guys, look, this is a special episode. We're not going to do our normal stuff here. Let's just get right into it. Spider-Man No Way Home. It just came out the day before we're actually recording this. So, did you guys see it today, yesterday, or the preview? When did you guys see it?
I saw mine Thursday night.
At the preview show.
Yeah, was able to score tickets. Uh, Crazy story. Hit up a buddy of mine who's a neighbor. I was like, "Hey man, you go see Spider-Man with me? I can't find anyone else to go." He goes, "Hell yeah, I want to go. Let's go." I go, "Okay." I go, "I'll find tickets." I go, "Dude, there's 2 tickets left in like Arnold movie theater at 6." He goes, "Get them." Got them. Sends me back a message half hour later. "Hey, my buddy wants to go. Can you get a third ticket?" No, that's not how theaters work around us anymore. There are assigned seats. He goes,
Yep.
well, my buddy's going to come anyway. I'm like, okay. So we get to the theater. His buddy arrives. We go, what's up, man? He goes, nothing. We go, where's your seat at? He goes, I didn't get a ticket. You didn't get a ticket? He goes, no, I didn't get a ticket yet. And you go, you need to go buy a ticket. And he goes, oh. I go, dude, they're probably sold out. And he goes, no, man, there's one seat left, 4 seats down from you guys. And we're like, okay, we'll go buy it. And he's gone his app, airs out, can't get it. He goes, and we go, just go to the guy at the front. Now this is 3 minutes before the movie starts, so I'm freaking out. And I was like, go to
Mm-hmm.
the front and get your ticket. He runs up there. Hey man, I'm gonna get this ticket. Guy goes, oh, we have this front row seats. The guy goes, no, you have one on your app right here. And the guy goes, oh, okay, yeah, we do. Yeah, it's yours. So we go into the theater. We get our popcorn. We sit down. He sits right next to us. And I go, dude, what are you doing? It's not your seat. He goes, it'll be fine. Literally, when people came in, they were like, that's our seat. He goes, no, man, I got the seat down there. Just take it. It's fine. And everyone was just like, okay, cool. And everyone just sat in the seat next to him. And he had to sit next to us. And it all worked out great.
Whoa.
Like, faith in
Whoa.
humanity restored. People were super cool. They were like, yeah, we're all just here to see Spider-Man. We don't really care as long as we got a seat. And everyone
Wow.
was
That's
just
a
super chill. And I
Yeah.
was just like, what? Like, what is going on? So, yeah, but that, like I
wow. That
said,
is a great story
right?
of
Like
go.
super
Yeah.
crazy story. And the best part is too is that my buddy's name is Charles, and his buddy is the guy he worked with, acts just like Eddie Brock. Like I swear to God, like that, like no care attitude. Yeah, man, whatever. Kind of a cool guy, has a cool car. Like just whatever. Someone miles off, I'll punch him in the face. I don't care. Like, and I was just like, dude, your buddy runs me Eddie Brock so bad. Like this guy is. So yeah, it was just well themed, awesome. Like saw it on Thursday night. Everything went great. So
That's awesome. That
yeah.
is awesome, Smurfy. Pistol, what about you? When did you see it?
I saw it last night. Well, actually, I saw it yesterday at 3 because
Okay.
that was the best time for tickets. Because when I was looking at the rest of them, there were only single seats available,
Yeah, dude, it's
and
a
the
lot
missus and
fast.
I, yeah, we're like, well, whatever. And then, so leading into this, we watched every Spider-Man movie that would matter. So we watched
Mm-hmm.
all the Spider-Mans, Amazings, and then the Marvel main story Spider-Mans. Not we wanted to try and fit in like Infinity War and
That's a
Sure,
lot though,
sure.
maybe
man.
Civil
It's
War,
a
That's
but
lot.
we
that's
did
a lot
yeah
of hours, man. That's a lot of
yeah
hours of watching in like a week.
Well, I
yeah.
think that this is what? This is the 11th. I think it's the 11th live action on screen appearance of Spider Man in
Okay,
film.
that
I
I
think.
think yeah, like 10 or
that would
11.
be
I mean,
right. Yeah.
sorry, I might have missed one,
If
but
you're
you're
if you're
right.
counting all the Avengers movies and everything, and just
Mhm.
live action, so not counting Spider Verse, but
Yeah.
um, So
So
Yeah, because
Pistol, it sounds like,
he's in 3 Avengers movies.
yeah,
yeah.
basically. I
Like,
mean, Civil
yeah,
War is essentially Avengers movie.
Mhm.
right.
Um, yeah, Pistol. So it sounds like you kind of went around the same time as we did. We went to a 2 o'clock showing
Okay.
on Saturday, and yeah, it was. Oh man, even the theater that we go to very rarely sells out on
Yeah.
screenings, which is why we kind of go there. And and even then, it was pretty full. It wasn't sold out, but it was pretty full for that venue. And we specifically went to the 2 o'clock because you go on the app nowadays. You can pick your
Yeah,
seats, obviously, and you can see what auditorium it's in. And
right.
so they had it playing like every half hour all day.
That's what I was.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
how
like
mine was.
five or six
Yeah.
screens, something like that. So we were making sure that we were going to the one that was the biggest. We wanted to see it on the biggest auditorium screen.
See, I saw it in the smallest because again, seats were available. Like
Well
everything else was
then,
sold out, so I was like, I don't
Mhm.
care. I mean, they
well
still had
then,
like,
I think that the pull list is going to have
yeah,
to do a little field trip and see it
right.
on a big screen then. But enough about that. Spider-Man No Way Home. Guys, what was your first thoughts? What was your first takeaway?
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
like uh it starts out where you're just like, oh my, like it starts out right at the end of Far From Home, like
Literally picks up in
no,
the exact
yeah,
moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
right. And then from there, like talk about like realism, like he drops off MJ and the one everyone's like, oh my god, are you Spider-Man's girlfriend? Like what's in there? They're surrounding her, and so Spider-Man's like, oh man. So he goes down there and gets there, and then like one lady goes to like touch him, and he grabs her hand and goes, hey, don't touch her. And she's like, Spider-Man hit me, you all saw it. And I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap, welcome to the modern age where that would totally happen. So right away I was just
Yeah.
like, what? Like I don't know. I was just like, where do we go from here, man? And then you see it just f's their lives up, and
Well,
you're like, God,
and that was kind of, I don't know about you guys, but that was the feeling like throughout the whole movie. It was just like one thing after another, which to me is the epitome of a Spider-Man story.
oh yeah,
I mean, the best Spider-Man stories are the ones where you have the guy who's just trying to do right, and
everything goes wrong.
every single time you turn around, something goes wrong. And the previous movies got aspects of that. Some of them got it more than others. But this was like every 5 or 10 minutes, something else was blowing up in Peter's face.
This was true Spider-Man. Spider-Man. This is what you read from the comics, see in the
Yep.
cartoons. He, no
Mhm.
matter, like I was telling like my wife, I go, that's what makes a hero a hero. No matter what this guy does, he keeps getting knocked down, but he keeps getting back up, and he just keeps getting knocked down, and the blows are more severe every time. But he still is like, no, I'm going to do what's right, and I'm still going to be Spider-Man because that's what I'm meant to be. I don't care. And I'm like, that was awesome. Like I was like, yes, this is
Yeah.
truly the Spider-Man that we've all known and loved finally coming to the MCU.
Yep.
Right.
Pistol, what were your thoughts?
So, like I just said, we finished Far From Home about an hour and a half before we went to see this.
Oh
So
wow,
Oh, wow.
literally,
it's fresh,
it was like
fresh in your head.
right, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
wow.
1 to 1 because there's no way this movie doesn't start exactly where
Right,
Far
it
From
had
Home leaves
to.
off. That's like the bomb, right? So, my whole thought was, yes, thank you, you did it because you know I think each of the Spider-Man movies captures something right about the mythology of Spider-Man, but none of
Absolutely.
them have quite nailed it. I think as a whole, and this movie still falls short in a couple things, but it goes for everything at once, and I think it succeeds in doing it a lot. And I am excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Yeah. I would absolutely agree. I think, we've had things like Spider-Man 2, which I think is in my opinion one of the closest, and certainly one of the top Spider-Man movies still to this day. But you're right, none of them capture it as fully as this one did. And you're right, there are still some things that are different and off, and not in line with the actual mythology and source material.
Mhm.
But I think it got the closest so far. And Uh,
I
One
agree.
comment that I have seen many people say online already is that this is now officially the MCU origin film, essentially, for Spider-Man. I mean,
Yeah,
everything that we have not had in the MCU Spider-Man got reworked and put into this one. Everything all the way from um, the life lessons, the villains showing up, and the phrase that we haven't had since the last Tobey Maguire film.
right.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I think you should just step back because in Amazing Spider-Man, they really worded it a lot better by adding about 20 extra words.
Is that what they did?
Is it?
The phrase is, and Martin Sheen is a terrific actor.
Yeah, he
No one
is.
can pull this line off. It's with you have, oh man, it's so bad. It's with a moral obligation to
Oh,
do
right.
something, not just right, but an obligation because you have the ability to do something. And I'm just like, what the
Yep.
You know what
not
they did?
cussing, not cussing because there's no editing in this. What are you talking about?
Hey, you know what they
What are
did?
you absolutely talking about?
Somebody went to like thesaurus.com and was like, with great power comes great responsibility. With,
Right?
another word for that is this. Great
Yep.
power. Another word for that is this. Great. I'm like,
Or
oh.
they did that thing where they translated it to Japanese to English
Yeah, right,
And
right,
then
another
how
and then
can
back
we
to
pad
English.
it and turn it into a
right.
monologue instead of just a phrase? No, the fact that we got it back for the first time since that third Spider-Man Tobey Maguire film, and it was perfect, and it was said a couple of times,
Yeah, by a couple
and
different people.
by a
Mhm.
couple different people.
Yeah, it was so super awesome.
Um, let's talk about the couple different people, guys. Again, if you're listening, we haven't really dropped
Spoilers.
too much big, but we're about to get into some heavy spoiler territory. So be warned. Here we go.
I
Um,
think we should talk about the first person who shows up
I
that
Yeah,
we're all
agree.
I don't want to skip
expecting.
that. Everyone's been
I
skipping
agree.
over it. Let's not.
Because when
Let's
Matt
skip him as
Murdock
due.
shows up,
Yeah.
Oh
it's
my
very
god.
nice. It's very low key. It's
It's
not
very
like,
subtle. Yeah, it's very
yeah,
subtle.
he's just like, you need a lawyer. And the next thing you see is his stick off to the side, and then it
Yep.
zooms down to him. And
And
you're like,
if I'm not mistaken, Happy's there, Aunt May's there,
yeah,
Peter's there, and he's like, "Hey man,
Hmm.
I can help you out with this. I can help you out with this. Hey Happy, you're in trouble because of Star Technology."
Yeah, I
And
know.
like Happy's like, "I am," and he's like, "Yeah, man." It being he goes, "Sorry, you inherited all the stuff that comes with it." And Happy's like, "Oh man," and then like the brick gets thrown through the window, and he catches it on the
Huh.
back of his hand, and
yeah,
Peter Parker looks at him and goes, "How'd you do that?" And he goes, "I'm a very good
I'm a
lawyer."
very good lawyer.
yeah,
I I
great.
lost it. I
Yeah.
lost it. I was like, and I mean, and just seeing Charlie Cox and he played Matt Murdock, nailed it so just calmly, coolly, yeah, but blind
Mhm.
lawyer, know what I'm doing, very good lawyer kind of guy. I was like, dude, awesome. Like, and I just felt bad because that moment all of a sudden just gets like avalanched with all the other stuff that you
Yeah.
Well,
almost forget that it's
and
there.
that's what I was just going to say about it is that sometimes when you see this kind of thing occur in a film, it means that the film doesn't know what it wants to be or where it's going,
Right.
and quite often, this is how a film will get muddled when it's so many things occurring that by the end of the film you forget some stuff from earlier because it feels like it's a different film. I felt that way in some cases with this, but I never felt like I was disjointed.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
right. It
Unlike
was,
unlike those cases where you feel like, does this film even know what it's being? It feels like there's three films crammed into one here and they don't mesh well. This one, everything meshed perfectly. The A to B to Z through line made perfect sense to me anyway.
Mhm.
But when I left, it took me like 30, 40 minutes to go, oh yeah, Matt Murdock was
yeah,
in this.
right,
That
right.
feels like it was 2 movies ago. There was so much that happened, but nothing felt rushed.
This was a connected dot puzzle where all the dots connected, and then you finally see the big picture, and you go, "Oh, that's awesome!" Forgetting some of those
Hmm.
dots were also super big moments.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I was like, man. I mean, to me, amazing storytelling that way. Have a guest,
yeah.
don't focalize on it too much. He's there. He's now part of the MCU. It's official.
Right.
Amazing. And then like they moved on. They're like, yeah, guys, it's official. Stamped it. Let's go. Like we have
Yep.
bigger story to tell. And you're like, what? Like really?
Right. I think this movie does better than a lot of other movies. Is they give
Yeah,
fan service without the fanfare.
without
It's like
kicking without
You
kicking the
wanted
nuts with
Charlie
it.
Cox's Daredevil. Here he is, but it's not a big like
Yeah.
because there was a part of me that was expecting like when the big fight like him to show up too as like Daredevil or something else, and it's like
Yeah.
no, he's just there as Matt Murdock.
Well,
I kept
and
thinking more heroes are going to show up too, and they didn't. And I was kind of like, okay, which I'm glad they didn't. But I kept the way the movie felt. I'm like, they're going to have more heroes show up in this end fight because he needs it. And they're like, no, man, this is a Spider-Man fight. And
well,
Right.
okay,
something that I was saying recently, I was going back and rewatching the old Spider-Man Unlimited cartoon and thinking about in the cartoon he gets the nanotechnology from Reed Richards,
hmm
and he has a scene with Nick Fury before he leaves to go to the Counter Earth and everything, and his ship crashes, so he's stuck there. And I thought, well, this is the problem that you have in doing a story that is this big when you don't have rights to all the other characters.
right.
Because even if none of the other characters existed in that world, you telling me that Reed Richards wouldn't send some sort of Fantastic Car in to get him if he doesn't come back, or Shield wouldn't look into it?
Right.
But at the same time, it still needs to be about Spider-Man. And I think that's where this film, and the fact that Marvel and Sony have been able to work together, this film succeeds. Because yes, Doctor Strange would show up in a case like this.
Oh yeah,
Yes, you would need a lawyer, and who is the lawyer
for the
to
heroes.
the heroes?
Mhm.
It's
Matt,
either it's
yeah,
either Jennifer Lawrence, who we haven't met yet, or Matt
or
Murdock.
Matt Murdock. Right.
And like Pistol says, you don't have to give huge fanfare and ridiculous fan service that is hitting you over the head, but you put it in there because it's a shared universe. That's what a shared universe is,
You put it
and
in
yet
there,
it's
and
still a Spider-Man story.
you put it in there. You don't put the wink. You don't have to add the wink and the nod. Like, hey guys, I'm
Right,
Daredevil.
right,
Hey, like you don't do that. Just
Right.
I'm
and
there.
yet
Boom.
and yet
You
they
know.
still did by him
Yeah.
catching the brick, and it wasn't forced. It
Right, and it
felt
was not
very
forced
natural.
because and it all made sense because like in the movie, Mysterio's like Peter Parker technically killed me, and half the people were like, "Hey man, that was wrong." Half people were like, "Hey, you were right," and so Spider-Man's got lashback about that. People were throwing green paint on him, going, "You're a murderer. You're a scum."
Hmm.
So once they
Mhm.
find out where he lives at, of course there's gonna be a couple mad people throwing bricks to the window because people liked Mysterio. He was a quote unquote hero during that
Right,
movie that people forget
right,
about. So you know,
Mhm.
yeah,
yeah.
no. So I thought it was awesome. I was like, very well done, very cool. Dude grabbing at the brick, and everyone was just like, "What?" Like, yeah, I
Yeah,
loved it.
and I was very happy that it wasn't just internet rumors, and then
Right.
because I would have understood had Matt Murdock not been in it. I would have
Yeah.
understood. I get it, but I also would have been disappointed.
Yeah.
Same.
Um, so
Mhm. He was really the only one that I expected to see. I had other expectations,
mm,
none of which came true, which is fine because they were all like, like Spider-Man No Way Home is already like at a 10 of 10. And I'm like, but what if it's a 20 of 10? And
Right.
calm down there, Pistol. You get one thing. It's like, all right.
well, that's a very good point, Pistol. Something that I meant to bring up at the beginning of the episode and completely forgot.
Mm,
In our Spider Verse episode, we had talked about things that we had hoped and expected to see in the film, and now we've seen it. So, refresh the audience, refresh our listeners what your hopes and expectations were for the film.
I think I wanted the lizard to have a snout, which he didn't,
No.
but looked way better because he wasn't smooth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he wasn't
Hmm.
Amazing
He had
Spider-Man.
scales.
That was real off-putting watching it again. Like he had scales. Yeah, his
Hmm.
eyes
Yeah.
were just the lizard's eyes because there were occasions where he'd have not lizard eyes while he was still in the transforming
Yeah.
process to
Yeah.
become the full lizard. Um,
Do you remember what they called him? I think it was like Ned or MJ was like, "Who's the dinosaur?"
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
dinosaur can talk.
The dinosaur can talk.
Yeah,
I was like, but I thought that
yeah.
was super fun. Like, I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
and then, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought that was funny.
No, yeah, I thought it was funny too. I can't remember my other one. It was something. It was probably something small that didn't matter. So
Yeah, I don't. I think for me, I'm trying to remember what my predictions and hopes were, and I think it was mostly just to see how it all connects. Listeners, you'll have to go back and check out our Spider Verse episode, because we can't remember what our predictions were. So go back there, check it out, and
Yeah,
see if we were right with anything.
hopefully, yeah, you don't have
Mine,
to listen
sin-
past us.
Yeah.
I wanted the Sinister Six kind of sort of villains to show up. I wanted multiple Spider-Man to show up, and then I don't know why. I guess I got so used to like Iron Man showing up. I was kind of hoping another Avenger would show up. Like I thought Hawkeye would, based off the way the Hawkeye series is going and being based in New York. I was like,
Um,
oh man, he will show up somewhere somehow or something. They didn't, which is fine. But I just thought that
right.
they would, since everything's kind of going on at the
Yeah.
same time in the same place. So
Well, and I guess we did get Doctor Strange, but I guess
we did.
technically Doctor Strange has not ever been officially inducted into the Avengers, at least not in the MCU yet. He fought with them, but he
Yeah.
wasn't
Spe-
necessarily made a member.
well, speaking of that too, what did you think about the part where all of a sudden he's like, "You're not the Sorcerer Supreme," and he's like, "No." When I got blipped, I lost it, and
I
I
I
laughed.
lost
know.
it because it was Wong, and Wong
I
was
know.
like, "Yep, I'm it," and I was like,
Technicality.
"Ah, yeah," and Wong's like, "Yep," and then Wong's bossing Strange around, and Strange is not
Uh-huh.
like it. Strange is like, "I used to be in charge of you," like, ugh. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
I was
Mhm.
surprised at how much Wong had in the film. I mean,
Well,
obviously
he's
you see him in the trailer, so you knew he was going to be there. But
I had a feeling because
you
he's been
know,
showing up in all the other movies.
he's been
Ever since
showing
Stan
up.
Lee passed away, he's the new like Stan Lee cameo
I was just
guy.
about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be showing up everywhere, and I love that because I've read Doctor Strange off and on over the years, but never enough to really get hooked on the supporting cast too much. But I love the Wong that they've developed for the films. I love the characterization.
I think part of it too
So
is the actor who plays Wong
Oh,
absolutely.
is great. Like his comedic
Oh
timing and
yeah.
everything is so great and so solid.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and give credit to Benedict Cumberbatch.
oh
I'm not
yeah,
going to say
no, yeah,
his and Scooby Doo this shit was
yeah,
Uh huh.
and
great line.
Yeah.
and the fact that
Great line.
MJ just being a high school girl goes,
Yeah.
you know what? There's other magical words you can use too, like
Yeah.
please that help things to go
Yes.
faster. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, please Scooby Doo this shit. I
Yeah.
was like,
That's
oh my
something else
god,
that I that's something else you bring that up, and it made me think, Smurfy, that the film does really well. That um, a Spider-Man movie can very easily fall into a trap of doing the opposite. They made Peter and Ned and MJ really all together the whole time.
yeah,
There was never really any, oh, I have to, I can't be around you, or oh, you're making me mad, or any of that bull
yeah,
drama crap.
Mhm.
Um, which I get how certain films in Spider-Man history go there, makes sense for whatever those stories are, but Spider-Man 3 showed us that it is insanely easy to fall into the
oh yeah.
angst and disgruntled relationship trap. And this film did not go there at all. If anything, it doubled down the opposite direction.
Yeah, which I very much appreciated.
Yes.
You got a lot
Yep.
to fit in there. Don't waste my time with some bullshit.
That's right. That's right.
And and
Um,
for me, it's like we already know the love story, so you don't need to
yeah.
refocus on
Mhm.
that. We already know the best friend story. We know that they're gonna have their unlimited support to Spider-Man no matter what happens. They refocus a little bit on that by going, "Hey man, we're in it together, even if we can't get into college together." And you see that
Yeah.
downside where Peter starts realizing that me being Spider-Man has consequences on the ones I love, which we
Yeah.
never really saw before. Before it was always like, "I'm Spider-Man, everything's hunky dory and great and fun."
Mhm.
Now's the downside, and it's like,
Yep.
oh, and this is the Spider-Man we all know and love.
Yep.
Mhm.
And we're like, ah,
And
there it is. It's got
and that
consequences.
actually, that idea that Spider-Man in the MCU, we've not really seen him with the Parker luck that we know so
Right.
well from the comics. I mean,
Mhm.
sure, he has it, and yeah, he's got the real world issues, and in his own movies there's problems, but because he is introduced with Iron Man in the middle of Civil War, we never really got that angle of things with him. But this one, gives us that. And I think, Smurfy, I think you're right. I think in that scene with Doctor Strange, the Scooby Doo this shit scene, um, that's kind of where it starts, because, or right before that is kind of where it starts, I guess I should say, because that's when we get all of the other cameos that we
Right.
knew were coming in that awesome, awesome Doctor Octopus sequence
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
on the
Uh,
bridge.
The-
and I think they did a good job of building up because this is a because the MCU did a retelling of Spider-Man in today's world,
Yep.
right?
Right.
You can't
Mhm.
do everything you did back in the 80s with Spider-Man today because it does.
It
I have a
doesn't work.
camera right here on my phone,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Technology has
So,
advanced too far in 20, 30
Right.
years, 40 years for him to be
Right.
like,
right.
oh, how are we going to get a picture of this? I don't know everyone on the planet. And then there's like cameras, street cameras. Trust me,
Yeah.
it's out there in video.
And
It's
so
out
I
there.
thought they did a very good job of making it make sense. And it makes sense
Mhm.
that Iron Man would be the one to find Spider-Man.
Oh,
It
yeah, totally.
absolutely does.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Yes.
whenever it is like, oh, he's just Iron Man Jr., it's like, yeah, but that makes the most sense. He's a tech hero. And for as much biological ability Spider-Man has, he's also very much a tech hero.
Yeah.
So like
He
Yes.
these
is
two
very
guys
smart. Yes.
are going to come together.
Peter
Oh,
Parker
I
is
love
a
the science scene. We're going to get to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Peter
Yeah.
Parker is a very smart person that people forget.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the movies have kind of, I mean, the Tobey Maguire kind of tells you it, but like they kind of forgot to bring that part up that like, oh no, Peter Parker for being so young is a very, very intelligent, smart scientist
Mhm.
kid
Mhm.
with tech
Mhm.
or chemistry or both or however you want to spin
Mhm.
it. So of course Tony Stark's going to be like, wait a minute, this kid's like a little me. I'm going to
Yeah.
follow this kid. I'm going to see
But
where this goes.
but as a result of that, it does end up changing some of Spider-Man's backstory,
It
Yeah.
does.
which is fine,
Right.
Mhm.
and it made it all make sense. And I think that's another brilliant move that this film does, is that it takes us back to what we know of as Spider-Man
Mhm.
without retconning anything that
Right.
we've seen in the MCU, and still giving us everything that a Spider-Man origin is supposed to have.
Right. And to add on to that, Far From Home also gives us that in a way. He still has Happy, but now Iron Man's not there. And
Right.
now he has to deal with because he wants to take a vacation, but no
Yeah.
hero gets a
It's a
vacation. You're a
vacation.
hero.
Exactly.
So Far From Home starts this narrative where it's like, now, Peter, you have to choose. And at the end, he becomes a hero. And now No Way Home takes it all the way to the end. They're like,
Oh my
you
god.
threw the pass, we caught it, and now we're running it in. Sports analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. Right there.
Man, nailed it. But
Nailed it.
yeah. And like right out the gate. And what I like is the story is a progression.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never Spider-Man just sitting there being like, oh man, I hope something happens. It's
Yeah.
him
Oh, yeah.
actively seeing things. It's like him actually, he is a part of the plot rather than the plot just drags him through the movie.
Yes, which I think helps make him far more interesting. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, when you have a big film like that, the central character, their story or their arc can be less interesting than some of the others, because they're driving the primary arc, which is just your basic plot.
Right.
And even if the plot is incredibly interesting, you know, the main character can still be incredibly interesting, but maybe not as interesting as everybody else. But that's not what happens here, because it's all part of the same thing. It's all connected.
I thought it was great.
Let's. You guys want to get to the villains? Because I feel like the villains were awesome. Their introductions,
Let's.
the way they kind of
So
retcon some
yeah,
of them, like so much to
because
dive
it
into
feels
there.
like there's like three waves of villains.
Right,
Mhm.
I
Right?
agree with that.
There's the original Sinister Six. Well,
Yeah.
there's the Sinister Five, right?
The Sinister
Okay.
Five. Mhm.
Yeah. And then Doctor Strange is kind of the villain for a minute because he's like, who cares if they all die? That's not our
Yeah.
problem. Send them home.
Well,
and then
it's not.
with
It's
the
not
power
that.
of math,
The
and
power
then
of
it goes
math.
back,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
then it goes
God.
back to the Sinister Six again.
I
So
don't
it
think
was
it
a real
was.
interesting. I'm not saying Strange is a villain itself, but like his motivation, definitely butted heads with Spider-Man's like, well, let's help them. And if we can help them, maybe we give them a chance. And if they don't want help, then we do. We send them back.
But well, to put it to your point, it wasn't that Strange was like, if they die, they die. He goes, it's their fate that they are destined to die. And
Mhm.
I've learned one thing through magic and all this timeline stuff and all that. You have to let things happen in order. And I
Mhm.
think he did that without saying all those words. And Peter Parker was like, no, we all have the right to change our destiny. And he's like, some things can't be changed, Peter. We have to let them die. And I think that's why he had to be so cold about it, because he knew Peter
Well,
would be like, no, let's save them. And he's like, you can't. It screws stuff up, man. Like, they're all destined to die by Spider-Man.
and to even further that point, Smurfy, I had read recently that the cast was told months and months and months ago, before the first trailer, the first teaser came out, that this film was going to be billed, not called Civil War 2, but it was going to be billed in trailers as Civil War 2
Hmm.
between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange,
Got you.
Hmm.
which, if you think about it, makes perfect sense, because even in the less than stellar Civil War 2 comic, any of the Civil War stuff that Marvel has done, you can see both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
It's not a good and evil black and white thing, which is the same case here between Peter and Stephen.
Right.
Mhm.
You can see both sides.
It
Um,
still feels weird.
yeah, still feels weird.
Stuff was weird.
And so, that it certainly plays into that aspect. Now, thankfully, they did not do that marketing, and because everybody knew, give
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
give us the bad guys. And yeah,
Mhm.
But I also think it was
the
like Strange being
villains.
the adult, hey man,
Sure.
and Peter
Hmm.
Parker still being the teenage kid,
Mhm.
full of like hope and dreams, and Stranger's like, no man, sometimes life sucks.
Hmm.
Like, welcome,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, so much in that little 5 minutes of dialogue that I was just like, man, like, you can see
Hmm.
both sides. You get it. You know what Peter's got to do. You know what Stranger's got to do. Stranger's like, I see what happens when you don't let fate take over. It's bad. So, you're just
Mhm.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I thought that, I was like, man, what a whole awesome, well written part of dialogue in just that 5 minutes.
Let me
Right.
ask you guys. Let me ask you guys this: What did you have of the Sinister Five? Did you have a favorite that they developed here, or all, because they were all kind of slightly altered
Yeah.
from their previous
Yeah.
film
Mhm.
But for the better.
appearances?
I think they were
Oh,
all altered for the
absolutely.
better.
Oh, absolutely for the better.
I would say the biggest alter was Norman, the
Hmm.
split personalities, whereas in the movie it's more like it is a voice in his head, but he eventually, they
Yeah.
gel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Here
this
it's
was
Yeah.
more like
definitely,
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
yes.
Um,
Very much so Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Yeah.
yeah.
That's his best way to put it. And you were like, oh,
Hmm.
I've been here the whole time, Peter. It was like, oh, boy. Oh. Still
Yeah.
terrifying. Still
I
kind of
got to
scary.
tell you,
Uh,
he steals the damn movie.
oh yeah,
Willem Dafoe.
Defoe.
I mean, he steals the
Defoe.
movie.
Woo! Love it.
Oh God, he's awesome.
And just by adding one tattered hoodie, they saved him from looking like an
I
absolute Power
know.
Ranger.
Dude,
One
you know what he
tattered
looked like?
hoodie.
He
He
looked
looks like the Green
like,
Goblin.
yeah, he looked like the Green Goblin. He looked like a former super soldier. Looked like he was actually wearing armor. Like, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like, it all, makes sense. Um, I was kind of like, again, spoilers. You don't see the lizard fight at all. You just see him behind the screen already. Strange is like, hey, we found him. We got him. Hey, Peter, here's what's going on. They're all here. You need to go after these guys. Are all related to you. This is your fault. Go get them. And gave him
Mhm.
a tool to do it. Um, I was okay with that. I was really happy to see the Doc Ock fight. I thought that went extremely
Hmm.
well. I love how the
Hmm.
nanotech went from Peter's armor to his tentacles,
Hmm.
and then
Mhm.
Peter was like, "Hang on, Wi-Fi off," and Doc was
Oh
like, "What?
God, that was
What?
awesome.
Like what?" He's like,
Yeah.
"What'd you do?" And he's like, "Age of technology, man." He's like,
Welcome.
"Huh?" He's like, "Yeah, welcome." And so he's like, and he can't move. He's just stuck. And then Peter was like, waving his arm around, like, "This is so awesome." And Doc's like, "What are you doing?
It's
Stop
so
that! Stop
neat.
that now!" Yeah,
Uh,
I thought that
the
was
only
great. I go, that's how technology would evolve and work, man.
Hmm.
So,
yeah, the only thing I noticed is like there really was a focus on three villains, and two kind of took a background, one more than anybody, and I was fine with that because the two that take the background are the Lizard, who had his redemptive arc in the movie
Hmm.
where he saves Amazing
Hmm.
Spider-Man from falling off a building,
Hmm.
even though Spider-Man's super sticky.
Right.
Um, and sorry, Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman,
Hmm.
but he still got to do a lot of things because the Sandman character is neat, but
Yeah.
like he also was forgiven by Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and
Right.
so like their arcs were done, but you needed one from each movie, and you're not going to bring in any of the hairy goblins, so works perfect.
Yeah, and I think that they did a nice job, even though those two did not have as much focus as the other three. Um, they did a nice job of balancing screen time
Mm-hmm.
between all five of them. I mean, you guys have heard me say this before, that I hate it when people complain about superhero movies and say, "Oh, that one sucks because there's too many characters." All a story is characters.
Right.
That's all that is in a story. It is physically impossible to have too many characters be the cause of quality in a film. It
Mm-hmm.
is, however, possible that you can have too many underdeveloped characters.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that play out plenty of times in superhero films,
Mm-hmm.
but not here. Every one of these villains, and it's all five of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them get a moment or two to shine. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
get more than that, but
Yeah. Osborn
Well,
definitely gets the most. I
yeah.
loved when they were all in the room in behind the magic cages. And like, there's so many quirky lines that we can throw at you, but like, what I love the most about it was them talking to each other and being
Yeah.
like, actually, you die and you die. I'm surviving. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, actually, you die too. You know what? And
Mhm.
it was like really interesting because like Otto was like Norman when they are on the bridge. And
Yeah.
so he's like, no, Norman Osborn's dead, blah,
Dead.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then Thomas Hayden Church is like, actually, you die too.
You're dead. You're
Mhm.
at the bottom of the
Yeah.
ocean, buddy. And he's like, what?
Mhm.
And then I like
And
Jamie
then,
Foxx going, well, he's like, I know Norman Osborn. You ain't him. But I
mhm,
was at that
Mhm.
facility, and that's how I got. And everyone was like, oh, like how that's how it's all connecting. Yeah, no, that part where they all talk,
mhm,
super awesome. Also,
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx try stealing the show because he's so great. Like he was just like, yeah, man, the fact that a guy in D&D outfit, Dungeons and Dragons outfit, took me over. I was
Boy,
like, I lost it. I
yeah.
was like, Jamie Foxx, so great.
Oh, yeah.
out of all five of the villains' portrayals in the film,
Mhm.
his was the one that was, in my opinion, fixed the most.
Yes, and
Yes.
it
And
was the
That's the best
best.
character upgrade. Yes.
Yes,
you
totally.
know, I
Mhm.
mean, yes, of course, they made mention of the comb over and the stupid look in Amazing
Mhm.
Spider-Man 2, but it was almost like the director said, Jamie, don't play
Yeah, don't play
Max
dumb.
like you did it
Mhm.
last time. He's a badass because Electro is a badass
Yeah,
in the
you know
comic.
what he said? I think that I'm pretty sure they went, "Hey, Jamie Foxx, play Electro like you would be Electro,
Yeah,
and go."
I mean, you're talking about the guy that broke out half the villains out of the raft
Right.
and
Mhm.
caused the new Avengers to form. This is not a joke villain, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think Jamie really was allowed to do it right
Mhm.
this time.
Oh, yeah.
So
And I loved even the smallest line of like him and when the dinosaur first talks.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, we worked together, and I was like,
yeah,
yes, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
like
hmm
that's what I think a lot of Spider-Man movies miss is like the interconnectivity of
hmm
Peter Parker's life and
Hmm.
like
yeah,
how it affects everyone else and like how all these people
yeah.
are then connected. But like
Which
this,
actually, if you
perfect.
think about it, that's the whole central conceit of this film. I
Hmm.
mean, the whole thing is about trying to
We didn't even
protect
talk about the main.
everything.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the main driving force of the
Yeah,
movie. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Peter Parker going to Doctor Strange and being like, "I just need one more day. Just make them all forget."
Yep.
And
Yeah, it's
and
the movie
then
version of One More Day and Brand New Day.
yeah, and then it all goes, and of course it goes wrong because now the
hmm
Parker luck is rolling,
hmm
and that's it. And then we start the movie, and I just love that you didn't even bother to call MIT before
I
you came
know.
to me.
Yeah. Like, wait a
You
minute,
Your
you're
first thought was to come to the
come to
wizard.
me, yeah, and
Well,
change the
when you
world
say it
instead
like
of
that,
calling them and asking. He's like, yeah, he's like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. I was like, what a typical high school kid
yeah,
right?
probably,
Like,
yeah,
would be like, oh my god, it's got to change this real fast. And then like as he's doing the spell, he's like, oh yeah, I want I don't want Aunt May to forget about me. Oh, and I can't forget about my best friend. I can't. He's
uh-huh.
like, Peter, stop changing the spell. He's like,
oh my
stop,
god,
you're screwing it up. I was laughing so hard because you
this
literally
is
keep
like
seeing like pulling pieces out, and he's like, who in the hell's a Ned? He's like, what's a Ned?
yeah.
He's like,
to me,
That was about-
it's so good of Benedict's bit when he's like, "Happy? No, I'm quite annoyed, thank you."
yeah.
Yes.
He's like, "No, that's why it's his nickname." Like their
Yeah.
chemistry, like A+ stuff, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It
Um,
was great.
Well, Jimmy
Guys,
Fallon had him on the other day, and it was Benedict, and it was
Yeah.
Peter. It was Peter Parker, and it was MJ, and it was Ned. And I was like, why would he have those four? That's a weird combination. And after seeing the movie, I go, oh, because those four
Oh,
interact a lot together,
yeah,
and it's
Yeah.
great. And I go, now it makes
yeah.
total sense way to have those four on there.
Well, I
So,
think Benedict gets like third billing.
oh
Are you
really? I can
sure?
believe it.
He
He's
doesn't.
he's in it a lot.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
doesn't get like an and or a with or anything like that. He
Mm.
gets like third billing. So he
Okay.
is
Yeah.
certainly a focal character.
Oh yeah.
Guys, we can talk about this. We can probably turn this into like a
Oh yeah.
3-hour podcast.
Right. And maybe
And
we
I
will on Patreon, and that's the only plug we'll
maybe,
do.
but before we really run out of time, I want to talk about the big thing, the big one,
Mhm.
the worst kept secret in Hollywood. Um, Toby and Andrew. We
Yeah.
gotta we gotta talk about that during this.
It was
Yeah.
leaked, and then they try to backpedal super hard. Of like, no, 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 no. We're like, dude, the secret's out. They're like, no, 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 no.
And
It's out.
and we
Like,
all knew it. We all knew
yeah,
it.
we all
We
knew
all
it.
knew that this
Yeah.
is, yeah, of course. And whether any of us believed that any footage had been doctored or whatever for the trailer is immaterial. I don't know about you guys, but I thought, oh, they're absolutely going to show up in the film. It's probably going to be one scene of, hey, here's, we're going to help you and explain what these guys do, these villains. And then maybe they'd show up again briefly at the end to help during the fight, like, the cavalry arrives or something. And I thought, that's about all we're probably going to get because that's a lot.
Yeah, like an end scene
But
battle. Here they come to save the day. Gone. Right.
but that was not, I mean, they're in the movie.
The
Oh,
inner
yeah. They're in the
when
second back half.
when
Absolutely.
they first get introduced, I could not stop laughing. Where Ned is like, find me Peter Parker, and then Andrew Garfield comes through, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm Spider-Man. They're like, no, you're not. And he's like, I am. They're like, prove it. And he goes, how am I supposed to prove to you guys? And they're like, well, prove you do something. So he jumps up and grabs the ceiling with his fingertips, and he goes, there. And then they go, that's not enough. He goes, what do you mean that's not enough? They go, crawl around. He goes, me hanging here is not, I think this is enough. And they're like, no, it's not.
Quit
You need
throwing
to.
bread at me.
Yeah, yeah, because MJ's throwing bread in the whole time, going, "I wonder if you have the spider thingy." He goes, "I do have the spider thingy, but it's not about bread." He's, And then
Yeah.
Ned's aunt, our grandma, walks up and goes, whispers something to Ned. He goes, "My grandma wants to know if while you're up there, you could go ahead and dust that cobweb for us in the corner." And he's like, "Fine," and he like crawls over and dusts it. And they were like,
it was
"Okay,
was
you're Spider-Man."
great.
I
Yeah,
was
I think it was-
laughing
yeah.
so hard. I was like, "Oh my god, that's so fantastic!" Like, do more. You want to do more than just hang here by my fingertips on a ceiling? I was like, "Oh my god,
Hey, Spider-Man, do a flip.
yeah, right."
Woo-hoo!
and then,
Yeah.
and then they call in. Then like, okay, let's find the other Peter Parker, and then you bring in Tobey Maguire, and he's older because he's aged,
Mhm.
and they go with that. They're like, "Yeah, man, he's been through some stuff,"
Yeah.
and you were like, "Oh my god!" And then they even talked to him like, "Oh, you're not wearing the suit," and he's like, I always have the suit. And I was
Oh, I
like,
love that.
ah.
What did he say? Hey, when we go into battle, are you gonna wear a suit, or are you just gonna go in with your whole like youth
Cool, you
pastor,
pastor.
Yeah, youth
cool
pastor
youth
look.
pastor thing?
Yeah, the whole youth pastor look. And he's like, I always have the suit. And I was like, oh, you're going to
That
see him all
was
in the suit.
that was something else. I
Mhm.
never faulted Andrew Garfield for
No,
those
I never
those
did
two
either.
movies. I had issues with his Peter Parker sometimes,
I
but
did too.
again,
I
I
thought he was a
don't
great
think that
Spider-Man.
was. I don't think it was him. I think a lot of it was in the writing that made
Right.
Peter a little too angsty for my taste.
Mhm.
But I felt like this gave him specifically the opportunity to kind of almost reclaim what he had been tainted by.
Yeah, I
in-
think so.
in the
And I think he
last.
does. I think he
Mhm.
does a
Oh, I
great
think he
job of it
does
too.
absolutely. I think he
I
was
think
great.
I think all three of them kind of do. All three of them are like, all right,
Yeah.
guys, this is your chance to kind of retcon or fix some things you didn't like about the previous Spider-Mans you were, and they do. And you're like, oh, I love them even more now. Like now, I really do love each Spider-Man more
Mhm.
now after this movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also
And-
love the part where they're talking with the web slingers, where
Oh,
Tobey
God,
Maguire
that was
shoots it,
great.
and they go, "Did that come out of you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "No, man, I had to build my own web shooter." And like, I did too, because Tom Holland's like reload and goes, "I have to too, and I have to reload, and it's annoying."
And they're like,
and
it's
he's
kind
like,
of a pain
"Oh,
in the ass, actually.
yeah." And he's like, "I just created it," and they're like, does it come out of anywhere else on you? He's like, no. Like, I thought that was super because I'm like, they would ask that. I'm like, that's super fun if
Yeah.
they were like
Yeah.
smart guys to go.
But
Tom Holland Spider-Man would absolutely ask if it
Oh
comes
yeah,
from anywhere
like
else.
awkwardly like that too. Like,
Yeah.
does it come out anywhere else of you? And it's like, no,
the
ew. Like,
the rapport, the dialogue, and the chemistry between the
Mhm.
three of them was great.
yes,
And that was something else that I thought was really great. It wasn't just that we got all three Spider-Mans in one movie. It wasn't just that they were in a lot of the film, because it could have very easily been, okay, well then for these 10 minutes it's going to be Andrew's part of the movie, and then
right.
these 10 minutes and we could have very easily just focused on each one. But no, we got all three of them together a lot
And
Mhm.
with some great dialogue together.
Mhm.
who was it that walks in? They're in the science lab, and they're all like, "Yeah, man, I got ways to fix my bad guys." And the other guy's like, "I got ways to fix my bad guy." Like, okay, guys, let's all get to work. We'll all help each other out, and they are. And Ned's
Hmm.
talking to all of them one at a time, like, "Hey, Spider-Man,
Yeah.
you got a best
Yeah.
friend where you're from?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do." And he died in my arms. And Ned's like, "Oh," and like scoots like away from him, like, "Oh
Yeah.
man."
Yeah.
Uh, and then MJ walks in, and goes, "Spider-Man," and all three of them are like, "Yeah." She's like, "Sorry, Peter Parker," or Ned, they're like, "Peter
This is
Parker."
also Ned. Yeah.
I was to say, I think it was
Yeah.
also Ned. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Ned, and they're like, I
Yeah.
mean, Peter Parker, and they're like, yeah, they're like, "Come on, guys, we're all, and he's like, oh right, I forgot you're all Peter, so like we need
And
to,
then he's like
yeah, and then
Spider-Man, like still same
and
guy.
and that comes back during
Mm.
the end fight scene too, where they're like, guys, this isn't working, we need to number ourselves. I'm Spider-Man
Yeah.
1. He's like, well, I'll be
Oh,
well, I guess I gotta be Spider-Man 3 then.
that
I was
whole
like, that
scene
was
where they
so
were
great
like, we don't really work well as a team.
as
He
a
goes, well,
team.
I've been in a team. I've been with the
Yeah,
Avengers.
and they're
And
like, that's
Toby's
great.
like, oh, that's cool. What is that?
Is that a?
You
And
in
he's like,
a
is that a
band?
band?
Is
Are you
that a
in a
band?
band? I was like, oh man, because
And then
yeah,
he's
those whole
like, no,
universes.
it's kind of Earth's Mightiest Heroes kind of. And I love when Toby goes, how is this helping?
Yeah, yeah.
How
He's
is
like,
this
"How's
helping
this
right now? Let's keep moving.
right, right.
Everything's crashing down.
I will say I did have one small disappointment, and it's here when they're like, "What's the weirdest thing you've ever done?" And they're like, and both of them were just like, "This is it." And it's like now is the time for like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to be like, having a kid, and like
Yeah,
and make reference to some random obscure
Hmm.
Spider-Man
that didn't
story. But
I
happen.
really thought that was going to be there too. Yeah.
yeah, and
Um,
it was weird. I was disappointed they were just like, "Yeah, we just beginning and end where you saw us," and it's like,
yeah.
Yeah, no, that I wish I would have expanded that universe, being like, oh man,
right,
because like, or like when they said when they were fighting people, like Andrew Garfield brings up fighting a guy in a rhino suit. It'd be cool if they would have
Hmm.
brought up a villain they didn't fight. Like, ooh,
yeah,
that could
Yeah.
still be to come. Like,
How,
yeah, or like allude to,
however,
yeah,
I will say, um, and I don't know if this was intentional because of some sort of a long-term plan that Kevin
right.
Feige has, or if it was just this was the right way to end the film. Um, the fact that all three of them survived
Mhm.
right,
and went back to their worlds does leave it open to bring them
yeah,
back. Now, I, I don't think that will happen, but you never know. Kevin Feige has long, long plans, and he sets
yeah,
things in motion that even put Chris Claremont's writing to shame
well,
in some
right.
aspects. So, who knows? We could get more of them at
And
some
it would
point in
work,
time.
especially with with all the stuff coming out about dimensions and
Yeah,
time, and
Mhm.
like very
yeah,
easily, very
Yeah,
good run possibilities.
we
yeah,
can get our
yeah.
own
I
MCU version of Exiles in a way.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
like also that in fight scene, man, when they're all jumping off the Statue of Liberty and they all do their infamous web swing, their own
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
style and with their own yells. Like Tobey Maguire does the woohoo, and
Yep.
yeah, I was nerding
Oh,
out pretty hardcore, man.
and
Like
then they
I could
played
tell
the
the audience,
music.
yeah, I could tell the
oh
audience didn't get it, but I got it. I go each one swing their own way with
Uh
their
huh.
own catchphrases they yelled when they did it. So I
Yep.
was like, man, it hit me in the feels. I was like,
right.
oh.
How choked up did you guys get? I
At the
Oh,
know
very much.
at the very very end, tears almost came down my eyes. I had to fight them back. At the
yeah
very
I
end, when I realized that he lost his best friend, his girlfriend,
mm-hmm.
Aunt May, everything, and now he is sadly to say, like the Peter Parker who has a crappy apartment and is trying to make ends meet. That's when I was like, oh my god, right in the feels, like that sucks for this kid, and that's when I almost cried.
Nobody in film, in my opinion, cries like Tom Holland.
Right,
My wife and
God,
I
he
saw it,
sells
and
it.
that was one of the first things that she even pointed out that I mean, he is able to tap into that emotion so well, and you know I mean, my gosh, that's one of the most heartbreaking moments of Infinity War,
Oh
when he
yeah,
starts to crumble into Tony
Tony's
before
arms,
he dusts away.
because the spider
Um,
sense felt it first, and then he got hit with
yeah,
it, and I
I
was like,
mean,
oh
he's so good at that, and yeah, that was a moment that got me. There were a couple of tears of joy moments that I had that I'm not ashamed to admit that I was crying about when all three of them were swinging together, and
That's
I was
fair.
seeing something I never thought I'd see before.
How about when all three
Um,
had the spider sense at the same time too? How cool of a scene was
that
that? Where
was
they're all like, "You feel
cool,
it, I feel it too," and they're all like slow motion. They're all looking around like it's coming, and I was like, "Oh, that's so
Mhm.
cool."
and I was choked when Aunt May was starting to die.
Yes,
But
I thought she was gonna pull through.
when she started to pull through,
I
I,
was
I
like, "Okay,
stopped. I
cool."
was like, oh, okay. And then she gave us the phrase,
Yes,
and the choke on my throat came back.
yeah.
And I was like,
It
oh my
was
God, this is perfect.
Mhm.
actually for me, it was all that, and then when Happy came up and ran interference for the cops, so
Oh,
Spider-Man could have the
yeah.
last moment, and Happy knew what was going. Like he looked and knew what was going on, and goes, "Okay," and literally drove his car between him and the SWAT
Mm
team,
hmm.
and was
Mm
like,
hmm.
"Can I park here?" type thing, and you were like, "Happy's buying him time, so you can have the final moments with Aunt May." Oh my god! Like that
Well,
really, like that's where I was like almost cried again. I was like, "Son of a bitch!" I'm like, "You got me!" Like, damn you, Marvel.
I didn't cry at it, but what really drove the final nail for me is at the very end, he's at the grave and Happy comes up and he
Oh,
asks, "How did you know her?"
Yeah,
That's like because the whole time the missus is like, "Oh, one strange casts a spell, they all forget. May lives, like everything, like
no,
everybody lives, happy ending." And I was like, and in my head, I'm just like, "Nope,
nope,
that's
that's
not
not how
how
it works,
Spider-Man
right?
well,
works."
Yeah.
he
And
did.
then
He
and then
didn't
Happy
say
just
make everybody
drives
forget
out.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man was still
Yeah,
there.
Spider Man's around.
Spider-Man,
It's
yeah,
Mhm.
who the hell is Peter Parker? You
Mhm.
yeah.
know, and that's because that's when my buddy goes. I never forgot who Peter Parker is. I go, they did, not Spider Man. Spider Man still saved the day. Spider Man still
Hmm.
fought with the Avengers. Spider Man still did all this stuff. Spider Man still fought Mysterio. But who the hell is
And
Peter Parker? And he goes, "Oh my god!" That's when my buddy was like, "Oh my god!" I go, "Yeah, dude." I go, "That's yeah, right."
and
Mhm.
I don't know how you guys felt when One More Day or Brand New Day came out. What was that? 12, 15 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I remember I had issues with it. I had issues with that whole thing, and I remember that who was it? I think it was J. Michael Straczynski was writing it at the time, and I think he had issues with it too. And it was Quesada, Joe Quesada, who was running Marvel, and who said, we got to do this. We got to put the genie back in the bottle after Civil War. And Straczynski said, yeah, but I don't understand. Like, we've got to make it make sense. We have to make it
right.
understandable and relatable. And Quesada said, no, we don't. No, we don't. It's magic. That'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
everybody kind of went,
Yeah, that's what a cop out.
okay, yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
whatever. Well, here we go. This movie, yeah, it's magic, and
But it
that'll
makes
do
sense.
it. And they made it believable.
It
Mhm.
makes sense. I mean, and also like you said, makes
Yeah.
sense. Where it's like,
Yeah,
where you could explain to somebody like that, like, yeah,
they
man,
they
Spider Man's
took
there.
something from a pretty controversial Spider-Man comic
Yeah.
and made it work.
Mhm.
I mean, hell, if they could do that, I maybe wouldn't be so opposed to them trying to tackle the Clone Saga if they're going to fix things.
All right, calm down there. Calm down
Yeah.
there. All
Okay,
right.
okay,
Well,
man, that might be a little far.
did
That
you
might
guys
be a little far.
pick? Did you guys pick up when he moved to his new apartment? One of the books he slammed down that was in the
Was
box.
GED.
GED study guide. That means that
Mhm.
Oh
he did
yeah,
not graduate high
hmm
school. Which
yeah,
for a
Mhm.
kid that smart, you go, oh my god! Like he was
yeah,
on
I
his way
caught
to
that too.
MIT and never then he because no one knew who it was. He dropped out, so he's got to go to his GED. And I was like,
Well, no, it's not because he dropped out. It's because Peter Parker
doesn't exist.
isn't a
That's what I'm
thing.
saying. It wasn't he didn't drop out, right? Like if he'd show up to
Yeah,
school, they'd be
Mhm.
like, "Who are you? You're not on our list. We have no record
right.
of your grades, nothing." So
Because
yeah,
he has
so
no high school
right,
grades. Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
So now the new technically now the new Peter Parker he is has to
Hmm.
go get a GED because he doesn't
Yeah.
have any credits. And I was like, yeah, like I don't think people really realized how much it. Like, no, man, like he is starting from scratch. Like,
Mhm.
wow,
And that, I think, since that's kind of the end of the film, that brings us to the last two things that I think that we've got time to hit before we turn this into a epic
right.
movie review. Um, First off, the new costume
Which
that he
one? Oh,
hand
the end.
sews at
Yes,
the end,
Mhm.
the
and
flashy blue.
we don't really get a full clear glimpse of it.
Right.
Nope.
but you can already find it online. There's already freeze frames all over the internet. If we can find one, listers, we will share it with you um, on our social media pages. But it, that finally is the costume.
Yeah, it's
I
like
mean,
the glossy blue.
Mhm.
Right.
they've gotten so close so many times, and I
Yep.
always said that Andrew Garfield's in Amazing
Was pretty
Spider-Man
close.
2 was probably
Two.
the best. Yeah. But even what you see Tom wearing at the end of this movie is better even than that. I mean,
Mhm.
Right.
it's the colors, it's everything. It's everything you want. It's
Yeah.
Spider-Man. And then a mid-credit stinger that I was not expecting. I have to admit.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that because I still have not seen Venom 2.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty good. I mean,
Um,
I got it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
we
a
have
fun
it too. I
ride.
haven't watched it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's super fun ride. Right.
Yeah.
Real
And I
quick,
Yeah, I
with
definitely enjoyed it. It does pick off from the Venom 2 stinger. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
so
yeah,
it does.
real quick with that too. I want to so the stinger. There's a Flash, and Eddie Brock appears in the MCU universe, not knowing
Mhm.
what's going on. A friend of mine thought that the Flash was Thanos' snap brought him here. And I go, no, man, the Flash we found out now is the spell from Stephen Strange. And he goes, oh. And I go, so if fans are confused by that, the Flash is Strange's spell that brought him in here. And then he's talking to the bartender the whole time throughout the whole movie. You find out, and he's going through the whole history of the MCU. Like you have a guy who flies around in a metal suit, like
Yeah.
really. And then you have a guy who just says who's angry and green, and he's like the Hulk, and he's like, oh, okay, like what? Like I need to know more about this. Like I thought that was fantastic. Like instead of getting in the fight, he's just getting the history of the MCU. And I
And
was like, sounds about right.
what a way to tease the MCU
Yes,
version of Venom by
Right.
that
A little-
last shot.
a little piece gets left behind.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the last thing he thinks he and Venom think of are we should get to New York and talk to this Peter Parker kid.
Yep. And then a piece gets left behind, and you're like, that's gonna be its mission. So
I mean, my God, wouldn't it be awesome to see a Tom Holland symbiote Spider-Man
Right.
black suit movie?
that would be
We'll
awesome.
see.
And they tease you with the black suit during that movie because when he's fighting Electro, he's got to fight it, don
Got
a
the
new
black
suit. And he's
and
got
gold,
green
yeah. Mhm.
because he's got the green paint on it. So he just hurries up and paints it black and gold. They dye it. They hair dye
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
which I thought was fantastic. Like he doesn't know how to clean his own suit, so he's got to dye it. I was like, oh god.
Well, guys, like I said, we could go on and on for
yeah.
hours, but
Mhm.
we want to know from our listeners, we want to know from you guys, have you seen Spider-Man No Way Home? What were your thoughts? Did you love it as much as we did? Head on over to all of our social media platforms. Leave a comment on our YouTube channel, on this video if you're watching this on YouTube. We want to know your thoughts on Spider-Man. Geek out about Spider-Man with us.
Right. And if you didn't see it, why did you watch this or listen to this?
Yeah, let us know too. You just want to a quick review of
especially
the
after
movie?
especially after we told you about the spoilers. Yeah.
Yeah. But
All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode, this review of Spider-Man No Way Home, and I don't know, guys. I kind of feel like this might be I don't want to call it a pilot of a new series of episodes, but kind of a test promo for a new kind of maybe review show that we'll do.
it's
going
almost like I've
forward.
pitched Master Geek Theater for
Almost.
months.
Almost. Ooh. All right, guys. Thanks again, as always. I am Dr. Impact.
Smurfy.
Pistol Danger.
We'll see you next time.
What he means is you and everyone you know should subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on every app possible.